At the port, only my children were missing from the passenger list. My mother smiled. They belong with me now, she said calmly. I looked at the crew member and whispered, call security. She's not even on their birth certificates. 10 minutes later, everything unraveled. The lies, the forged documents, the fake trip. And she wasn't the only one in on it. I stood at the port, gripping the handle of my suitcase so tightly that my knuckles turned white. A warm Mediterranean breeze brushed against my face, but I felt nothing but an unbearable chill creeping up my spine. The cruise was supposed to be a fresh start, a way to celebrate the end of the worst year of my life. The divorce had drained me emotionally, financially, even physically. I lost sleep, lost weight, lost faith in people. But I won what mattered. Jonah and Lila, my babies. Sole custody. No visitation for Adam. No loopholes. No shared weekends. It was over. Or so I thought. I checked the passenger list again, scanning for their names, my heart pounding in my ears. My name was there. My parents, Margaret and Henry, were there. But Jonah and Lila? Nowhere. The cruise employee looked at me expectantly, waiting for me to step aside. But I couldn't move. There's a mistake, I said, forcing my voice to stay even. My children should be on the list. Margaret, standing beside me, let out a soft sigh, the kind she always used when she thought I was overreacting. There's no mistake, dear. I turned to her, the sinking feeling in my stomach spreading like poison. What? They're not coming with us. My mind couldn't process the words, the meaning, the casual way she said it, as if she were telling me I'd forgotten to pack sunscreen. I laughed, a short, humorless sound. You're joking. She smiled. No, dear. My throat went dry. Where are they? She didn't blink. With people who can take better care of them. The world tilted. My fingers trembled as I reached for the cruise employee's arm. My voice came out in a hoarse whisper. Call security. She's not even on their birth certificates. The man hesitated, his brows knitting together, but I could see the unease in his expression. Margaret sighed again. Oh, for heaven's sake. She turned to the employee. There's no need for this. She's always been dramatic. I could barely breathe. I didn't even realize I was shaking until I felt my father's hand on my shoulder. What's going on? He asked, slightly out of breath, as if he'd rushed over from somewhere. She took them. I choked out. Margaret's voice was cool and even. I didn't take them. I did what needed to be done. I turned to my father, desperate for some kind of support, some sign that he had no part in this, that he would help me fix it. But he looked at Margaret, then at me, and his face was unreadable. That was when I knew. He had known. My breath hitched. Oh my God. The cruise employee muttered something into his radio. Two uniformed men approached, their eyes shifting between us. Ma'am, one of them said, is there a problem? Margaret folded her arms, exuding an air of absolute control. There's been a misunderstanding. My daughter is upset, but everything is fine. The other officer looked at me. Miss, do you need assistance? I swallowed hard, forcing my words to come out strong. Yes, my children are missing. Margaret shook her head. Missing? Don't be ridiculous. They're safe. I made sure of it. The casual way she said it, like she had just taken them to the park and I was making a fuss over nothing, made me want to scream. The officer frowned. Do you have legal custody of these children? I nodded rapidly. Yes, I do. No one else. The officer turned to Margaret. And you? Margaret didn't flinch. I'm their grandmother. That wasn't the question, ma'am. She smiled. They belong with me. I could feel my pulse in my skull, the pounding so intense it made my vision blur. The officer's radio crackled. A voice came through, confirming minors were checked in at a separate location under different documentation. Margaret didn't even react. I turned to her, my voice shaking with rage. Where are they? A small, satisfied smile curved at her lips. Not where you'll find them. And then, a voice I hadn't heard in almost 10 years rang out behind me. She's not lying. I turned around, and my heart stopped. Jonathan Calloway, my ex-fiancé, the man who had disappeared without a trace nearly a decade ago, leaving me heartbroken and questioning everything I thought I knew about love and loyalty. I felt like I'd been slapped. What the HLL are you doing here? He sighed, running a hand through his hair. I was trying to fix this before you found out. Before I could respond, the officer's radio crackled again. Confirmed, forged travel documents. 2 minors. I gripped Jonathan's arm. Tell me where my kids are. His jaw tightened. Valencia. My head spun. This wasn't a spontaneous kidnapping. It was planned. Margaret watched me with calm amusement, as if I were a child throwing a tantrum over something she had already decided for me. I turned to my father, my voice raw. You let this happen? He looked away. Oh my God. I turned back to Jonathan, my breath coming in short gasps. Take me to them. He hesitated. I shoved him. Take me to my children, or I swear to God, I will, he said quickly, glancing at the officers. I'll take you. Margaret sighed. You're being so dramatic. I whirled back to her. You stole my children. She didn't even blink. They'll thank me one day. I lunged at her. Security held me back. My mother, the woman who raised me, who pretended to support me through my divorce, who watched me cry myself to sleep over losing trust in people, stood there as if this was all justified. Jonathan swallowed hard. We need to go? Now. And for the first time in my life, I was afraid that if I didn't move fast enough, I'd never see my children again. We drove like demons through the winding streets of Barcelona, Jonathan gripping the wheel so tightly that his knuckles turned white. I sat in the passenger seat, my entire body rigid, my heart slamming against my ribs. Every second that passed felt like another moment stolen from my children. I turned to him, my voice low and venomous. Start talking. He exhaled sharply. It's not what you think. I let out a short, bitter laugh. Oh, really? Because it looks a whole lot like you helped my psychotic mother kidnap my children. Jonathan's jaw tightened, and for a moment, he didn't speak. The streetlights flickered past us in blurs of yellow and white as he took a sharp turn. She told me you weren't well, he said finally. That you were unstable. That you were losing control, and the kids were suffering for it. I stared at him, my mouth falling open. You believed her? He didn't answer right away, just pressed his foot down harder on the gas. Oh my God, I breathed. You believed her. And you helped her. I didn't know she was planning this, he shot back. I swear I didn't. I thought I was just helping her get legal documentation in place, in case. He hesitated. In case what? I demanded. His grip on the wheel tightened. In case you had a breakdown and lost custody. Rage bubbled up in my chest so fiercely that I nearly reached across and punched him. Instead, I forced myself to take a shaky breath. Let me guess. She told you I was drinking too much? That I was erratic? He said nothing. A cold, cruel laugh escaped me. Jesus Christ, Jonathan. You vanished from my life 10 years ago without a goddamn word. You don't know me. And yet, she calls you up out of nowhere, feeds you some sob story, and you just believe her. He clenched his jaw. She showed me proof. I froze. What proof? I demanded. He hesitated, like he wasn't sure whether to answer. My voice dropped into a dangerous whisper. What the HLL did she show you? Jonathan swallowed hard. Medical records. A sickening chill spread through my body. That's impossible. He flicked his eyes toward me, just for a second, before looking back at the road. She had papers. Said you were on psychiatric medication. That you had an incident a few years ago where you... He stopped himself. Where I what? I hissed. He didn't answer. I shook my head, my hands trembling with fury. That never happened. Jonathan looked genuinely disturbed now. You're telling me those records were fake? Yes, you idiot. I nearly screamed. Jesus, Jonathan. She forged them. How can you not see that? He let out a sharp breath. I thought I was protecting them. My head fell back against the seat as I laughed bitterly. You're an idiot. He didn't argue. I turned my face toward the window, breathing hard, trying to hold myself together. But my mind was spinning, pieces clicking into place. Margaret had planned this. Not for weeks. Not for months. For years. The documents. The slow, careful way she had inserted herself into my life after my divorce. The way she offered to take Jonah and Lila for weekends so I could rest. The way she subtly undermined me, planting seeds of doubt in everyone around me. She had been setting this up for a long, long time, and I had never seen it coming. Jonathan shifted uncomfortably. We're almost there. I turned to him. Who else is involved? He flinched. What? You heard me. His hands flexed against the wheel. I don't know. I narrowed my eyes. Bullshit. Jonathan exhaled sharply through his nose. Look, I don't know everyone, but I know she had a lawyer. Someone who helped her get documents. And there was a woman. I stiffened. What woman? He hesitated. Jonathan, I warned. His grip on the wheel tightened. She called her Marie. I felt like the air had been escaped from my lungs. Marie, my mother's best friend. A woman I had known since childhood. I closed my eyes, a wave of nausea rolling through me. Marie had been at my wedding. Marie had held my babies when they were born. Marie had been at every family event, every holiday. And all this time, she had been part of it. Jonathan pulled onto a long, secluded road lined with olive trees. My pulse spiked. Is this it? I asked. He nodded. A villa came into view, hidden behind tall iron gates. Jonathan parked just outside, cutting the engine. The silence that followed was deafening. I turned to him, my fingers curling into fists. You get me through that gate, or I swear to God, I'll destroy you. Jonathan didn't move for a moment. Then, slowly he nodded. I'll get you in. I swallowed hard, my pulse hammering. And then, without another word, we stepped out of the car. Jonathan led the way toward the heavy iron gate, his movements stiff with tension. He hesitated before punching a code into the security panel. How do you know the code? I asked, my voice low. He glanced at me, guilt flickering in his eyes. Margaret gave it to me. I clenched my jaw, shoving down the burning anger rising in my chest. There would be time for that later. Right now, all that mattered was getting inside and finding my kids. The gate clicked open with a soft beep. My stomach twisted. Jonathan pushed it open and stepped aside, as if to prove he wasn't going to stop me. I brushed past him, stepping onto the stone pathway that led up to the villa. The house was massive, white stucco walls, arched windows, a sprawling courtyard with a fountain bubbling softly in the center. It looked peaceful, beautiful even. But I knew better. This wasn't a vacation home. It was a goddamn prison. My fingers twitched at my sides as I scanned the front entrance, my heart hammering. Are they inside? Jonathan nodded. They should be. They should be. That wasn't good enough. I took a step forward, but Jonathan grabbed my arm. Wait, he said. We need to be careful. I yanked my arm away. I don't care about careful. I care about my kids. He sighed, rubbing a hand over his face. Listen to me. Marie is here. I froze. I had known she was involved, but hearing her name made it real in a way that sent a fresh wave of nausea through me. Marie, the woman who had baked cookies with me as a child, who had sent me birthday cards every year, who had comforted me after Adam left, was here. And she was helping my mother keep my children from me. Jonathan must have seen the look on my face because he took a cautious step back. She's not going to make this easy, he murmured. I swallowed the lump in my throat and squared my shoulders. Neither am I. Without waiting for him, I stormed toward the front door and pounded my fist against it. The seconds dragged on like hours. Then, finally, I heard footsteps. The door swung open, and there she was, Marie. She looked exactly the same, short brown hair, warm brown eyes, wearing the same soft cardigan and jeans combination she always did. She even smelled the same, like vanilla and lavender. But the moment she saw me, her expression darkened. Scarlett, she said, her voice tight. I forced my breathing to stay even. Where are my kids? She didn't blink. You shouldn't be here. My body felt like it was vibrating with rage. Where are they? Marie's lips pressed into a thin line. They're safe. I took a step forward, but she moved quickly, blocking the doorway. I could feel Jonathan hovering behind me, silent, waiting. Marie, I said slowly, move. Her eyes flicked past me to Jonathan, and something unspoken passed between them. A warning. A reminder. She still doesn't know everything. I turned sharply to Jonathan. What is it? He didn't answer. Marie exhaled, looking almost sad. Scarlett, if you just take a breath and listen. No, my voice cracked. I'm done listening. I want my children. Now. Marie sighed. I can't let you take them. Rage exploded inside me. I shoved her hard. She stumbled back with a gasp, and before she could recover, I stormed inside. The house was eerily quiet. Too quiet. I turned down the hallway, my pulse hammering. Jonah? Lila? Silence. Then, the sound of a door opening upstairs. My head snapped up. Footsteps. Light. Careful. And then, Mommy? Lila's small voice. I ran, taking the stairs two at a time, nearly tripping in my desperation to get to her. And there she was, standing at the top of the stairs in pink pajamas, her blonde curls a mess from sleep. Her big brown eyes blinked at me in confusion. I let out a choked sob. Baby. I barely had time to drop to my knees before she threw herself into my arms. I wrapped myself around her, inhaling her scent, my hands shaking as I ran them through her hair. Oh my God, I whispered. I'm here. I'm here, baby. Lila clung to me, her tiny fingers fisting in my shirt. Grandma said we were moving. I squeezed my eyes shut, trying to swallow the lump in my throat. She lied, I murmured. You're coming home. A door creaked open behind me. I turned. Jonah stood in the hallway, his little face twisted in confusion. Mom, he asked, his voice hesitant. Why are you here? My heart cracked in half. He was old enough to know something was wrong. Old enough to understand that this wasn't normal. I reached for him, but he didn't move. She said you didn't want us anymore, he said quietly. The world tilted. My breath caught in my throat as his words crashed into me like a tidal wave. Margaret. That BTCH. I shook my head frantically, hot tears blurring my vision. That's not true, Jonah. That's not true. He hesitated. Then, finally, he stepped forward. I pulled him into my arms, holding both of them as tightly as I could, as if letting go would make them disappear. A soft, clipped voice shattered the moment. How disappointing. I turned slowly, still holding my children, and met my mother's cold, unflinching gaze. She stood at the end of the hallway, arms crossed, her expression unreadable. But her eyes were full of something dark, something dangerous. I tightened my grip on Jonah and Lila, my heart hammering. Margaret tilted her head slightly. I really hoped you wouldn't come. I swallowed hard, every instinct screaming at me to run. She smiled. But since you're here, I suppose we should talk. The air in the hallway was thick with tension, suffocating and heavy. I held Jonah and Lila tightly, feeling the way Lila's tiny fingers dug into my shirt, the slight trembling in Jonah's shoulders. My body screamed at me to run, to get them the HLL out of here. But Margaret stood between us and the only exit, her arms crossed, her expression unreadable. She didn't look angry. She didn't look surprised. She looked amused. That scared me more than anything. I forced my voice to stay calm. We're leaving. Margaret chuckled softly. Oh, sweetheart. I think you know it's not that simple. My fingers curled tighter around my children. Move. She sighed, shaking her head. You're being emotional. As always. Jonathan hovered at the top of the stairs, silent, his jaw clenched. He hadn't said a word since my mother appeared, but I could see it. He was struggling, fighting some kind of internal battle. I didn't have time for his guilt. I turned to him, my voice sharp. Are you going to help me, or are you just going to stand there? He flinched. Margaret smiled at him. Jonathan, dear, tell her she's making a mistake. He didn't move, didn't speak. I swore under my breath. You bastard. Margaret let out a dramatic sigh. Scarlett, I am trying to do what's best for them. You've always been impulsive, reckless, emotional. You were never meant to raise children. Jonah tensed in my arms. My grip tightened. Mommy's a good mommy, Lila said stubbornly, her little voice shaking. Margaret's lips pressed into a thin line. I know you think that, darling. But children don't always understand what's best for them. Jonah pulled away slightly, looking up at Margaret with furrowed brows. You told us she didn't want us. Margaret's expression didn't waver. I told you she was tired, that she needed time to heal. She glanced at me with a knowing smile. And I wasn't wrong, was I? Something inside me snapped. I fought for them, I hissed. Through everything. The divorce, the custody battle, the sleepless nights, the therapy, the breakdowns, the fear. I fought for them, even when I had nothing left. My voice shook. And you stole them from me. Margaret let out a soft, almost pitying sigh. You always see yourself as the victim. My pulse pounded in my ears. You're insane. Marie appeared behind her, standing at the end of the hallway, arms folded. She didn't say anything. She didn't have to. The quiet way she lingered at Margaret's side told me exactly where she stood. This had been planned. From the very beginning. I forced a slow breath through my nose. I couldn't panic. Not now. We're leaving. I repeated, my voice lower, steadier. You will not stop me. Margaret tilted her head slightly. And how do you plan to do that, sweetheart? You have no proof of a crime. No witnesses. Just a mother trying to protect her children from a woman who, she gestured vaguely, has a history of instability. My mouth went dry. That was it. That was her plan. She had fabricated everything. Medical records. Psychiatric reports. Lies, carefully curated over months, years. And if I fought her the wrong way, I'd be playing right into her hands. I swallowed hard, my heart slamming against my ribs. I had to be smart. I had to be careful. Let us go, I said quietly, keeping my voice steady. Or I swear to God, you will regret it. Margaret's smile barely faltered. Scarlett, dear, I think you should rest. That was the only warning I got. Because the next thing I knew, Marie was moving. A sharp pain exploded in my arm as something stabbed into me. I gasped, stumbling back, gripping my arm where the burning sensation spread through my skin. Oh my God, something was wrong. My vision blurred. My knees buckled. No, I choked out. Mommy. Jonah's voice was panicked. Lila whimpered. Mommy. I tried to hold on to them, to stay upright, but my body was shutting down. The last thing I saw before everything faded was Margaret's face. Calm, serene, like she had just tucked me in for a nap. I woke up to the sound of waves. For a brief, disoriented moment, I thought I was back at the port, standing in line for the cruise. That it had all been some horrific nightmare, some twisted manifestation of my worst fears. Then I opened my eyes. White ceiling, a slow, rhythmic beeping, the sterile scent of disinfectant clinging to the air. A hospital. Panic slammed into me like a freight train. I tried to sit up, but my limbs felt like lead. My head swam. My mouth was dry, my throat scratchy. Where were my kids? I forced myself to move, gripping the sheets, willing my body to wake up. Just as I struggled to sit up, a nurse walked in, her face lighting up in surprise. Oh, you're awake. I grabbed her wrist, my fingers weak but desperate. My kids. Where are my kids? The nurse hesitated. They're safe. A sob of relief caught in my throat. Where are they? I pressed. She patted my hand gently. You've been unconscious for almost 24 hours. You need to rest. I need to see my kids. My voice was hoarse, but it carried every ounce of determination left in my body. The nurse pursed her lips, then sighed. I'll let the officer know you're awake. Officer? My heart pounded as she left the room. A few minutes later, a man in a dark uniform stepped in, followed by, Mommy. Lila's little voice shattered every wall inside me. I barely had time to react before she launched herself at me, Jonah right behind her. I pulled them into my arms, inhaling their warmth, their scent, their realness. They were here. They were safe. Tears blurred my vision as I held them. I love you, I whispered against their hair. I love you so much. Jonah pulled back slightly. Are you okay? I nodded, even though I wasn't sure I was. I am now. The officer cleared his throat. Miss Carter, I'm Officer Ramirez with the Spanish Civil Guard. I have some questions for you. I wiped my face, still holding on to Jonah and Lila. What happened? Ramirez pulled up a chair, his expression serious. You were drugged with a mild sedative. We believe your mother intended to keep you unconscious long enough to move the children again. I swallowed hard, my mind racing. But she didn't. His lips pressed together. No. Someone tipped us off. My stomach clenched. Who? Ramirez studied me for a moment, then said, Jonathan Calloway. I stiffened. Jonathan. The man who had betrayed me. The man who had helped my mother. But he had also saved me? Ramirez leaned forward. He showed up at the police station with copies of forged documents, recordings of conversations with your mother, and a confession. He gave us everything. I could barely process what I was hearing. Jonathan had turned on her. He had finally chosen the right side. Ramirez continued. We arrested Margaret Carter and Marie Ellis early this morning. They're being charged with attempted parental abduction, falsifying legal documents, and drugging you against your will. A heavy weight lifted off my chest. It was over. I tightened my grip on Jonah and Lila, a shaky breath escaping me. And my father? Ramirez hesitated. He's under investigation. We don't believe he was directly involved in the planning, but he may have assisted in some capacity. I nodded, my heart feeling lighter. Not whole, not healed, but lighter. Margaret was finally gone. Lila nestled into my side. Can we go home now? I kissed the top of her head. Yeah, baby. We're going home. The Florida sun was warm against my skin as I sat on the porch, watching Jonah and Lila chase each other across the yard. We were home. Truly home. Margaret had been sentenced to 6 years in a Spanish prison. Marie had taken a plea deal. My father, coward that he was, had managed to avoid jail time, but was permanently cut out of our lives. And Jonathan? He had left Spain the moment the trial was over. I hadn't heard from him since, and I was okay with that. I'd spent so much of my life being manipulated, controlled, doubted. But now I had freedom, and my kids had a mother who would never stop fighting for them. Lila giggled as Jonah tackled her onto the grass. Their laughter filled the air, light and pure. I leaned back, taking a slow sip of my coffee, letting the peace settle in. Margaret had once told me, this isn't over, my dear. But she was wrong. It was over. And I had won.